I hope you guys are having a good day. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. I want to say what's up to everybody. As you come in, say hello and please hit that like box or like button as you come into the chat. Let me know what city you guys are coming from. I don't plan on being here for long, but I was really thinking about something tonight. I was thinking about a topic that my wife and I have discussed a few different times in this space. I guess they call it the manosphere now. In the manosphere is kind of interesting. It's an interesting place where, and I follow some of the sites just to see what people are thinking and what people are saying. And there seems to be a lot of frustration with women. I don't give me a yes or no if you've kind of noticed that there are segments of men that are really, really mad at women, and then segments of women that are really, really mad at men. And it's interesting. I mean, I'm concerned about it obviously because I am a member of the Black community and I care about the Black community and I don't like gender wars. I don't think any community is really going to prosper when the men and the women are mad at each other. And I don't think that this manosphere phenomenon is necessarily pervasive, right? I don't think it's as big. I think they're loud, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily the, how to calculate this, they're not the majority. And so I wanted to lay out a couple of perspectives on this. Especially for the guys that are tempted to kind of go along with the rhetoric and everything else, and just kind of give you a perspective on it because I was thinking about this, right? Because I'm not even really here to debate it. I'm just here kind of thinking about it openly in hopes that maybe this perspective will help and support somebody in terms of developing your point of view. So give me a guess if it's okay if I go a little bit Uncle Boyce on this, and then also I'm actually going to invoke some economic theory into this with a concept called supply and demand. Supply and demand. Supply and demand is an age-old economic concept that basically kind of says that everything has a market, and just the same way you have a grocery store, that's a market. You have the market for used cars, or you have the stock market. A market is a place where there is something supplied and then there's something demanded. And so even when you go to the club is a dating market. You go there, you're looking for, you're a man looking for a woman. Women are there looking for a man. You say, here's what I got, here's what you got. Let me have what you got, and you take what I got. And what's interesting about a market, here's where I'm going with this, is that sometimes if you are complaining a lot about the market, that kind of might say something about your ability to compete in that market. Like, so let me give you an example. Let's say that I go out and I want to get a job, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I've been applying for jobs and these companies, they suck. They don't want to hire nobody. They don't want to give a brother a chance. This ain't right. They don't want to, I went in there. I told that man I would work a whole 8 hours a week and he don't want to hire me talking about he wants 40 hours a week. He wants too much. And then he wants me to have a high school diploma. I got a GED. That should be good enough. What are you talking about? You want a college degree or a master's degree? I got the GED. That's good enough, right? So a lot of times when you complain about a market, here's what I'm getting at. When you complain about a market, sometimes that unfortunately speaks to your inability to compete in that market, right? So where am I going with this? Well, because I see a lot of conversation about high value man and high value woman. And I'm gonna tell you, and I guess that came about when Kevin Samuels was talking a lot about that. RIP to Kevin. I didn't dislike everything Kevin said. I know people maybe expect me to hate everything he said. I don't hate it all. I didn't love it all. It was just there, And I will say this too. I found out later after Kevin kind of blew up that he'd done a video about me and was actually supportive of me. So for that reason, I don't think he was a terrible guy in every way. However, what made me a little uncomfortable was this sort of monetization of disrespecting Black women that would kind of come out of it when you're expressing your own frustrations. So for example, like you can let a woman know that you don't agree with her dating approach without saying you're going to die alone. Fuck it, you're going to die alone. I don't think that was cool. I thought that was kind of mean because I know women who really are going to die alone. And it's not because they're bad people or made terrible choices. It's because there is a statistical imbalance between the number of marriage eligible Black men and the number of marriage eligible Black women. This is why I talked to you all about what hip hop has done to a lot of your men. It's turned a lot of your men into 40-year-old little boys. You run into men that are 40, living with his mama, sitting around smoking weed every day, and don't want to go like build anything, because he's still trying to be a rapper and he's like old enough to have grandkids or whatever, right? So a lot of that conversation I think could have been done differently. That's just the honest to God truth. But then again, though, we know that women are not perfect. Everybody knows that, right? So give me a yes, just so we don't get caught up in believing this is a pro man or pro woman conversation. Give me a yes if you've seen raggedy ass women, and give me a yes if you've seen some raggedy ass men that you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Let's try to have a balanced discussion on this. And because I want to make this point, or a couple of points, but one point that comes to mind most readily is this one. There's this platform I was following, I think called Red Pill, and I watch it. I like to read it just because I don't disagree with everything that they say. I kind of think some of the women that they put up there are pretty delusional and weird, and I see it, and then I'll see the comments, right, and I'll see all the men, they're like, oh, women like this are stupid, and women they do this and they do that, and I see it. I might agree, but what I'm thinking is, well, I don't care if she's weird. I don't pick weird women. I wouldn't date a weird woman. I would date a better quality woman. So to me, it's like, what are we complaining about? Like, what are we complaining about? And like, what is it about this incessant need to correct women that keeps you like going with this narrative? If I don't like what a woman does, I don't pick that woman. And so my thought would be, if you are really this high value man that you want to be, that you want to claim that you are, right? I'm high value. Maybe you make a certain amount of money, or maybe you just think that you have certain qualities that make you high value. Well, let me tell you a little secret. Let me tell you a secret. If you're really a high value man, then you can get what you want. Why? Well, because if one woman doesn't give you what you want, another woman will. If one woman's being a bitch toward you, well, there's another woman who will roll out the red carpet for you. So it's just like seeking a job. If I go and I try to get hired at a company and they say, well, we don't want to hire you, and if I'm truly qualified for the job, then guess what? There'll be 10 other companies that will hire me, right? But the only time I will complain is when I'm not really qualified. Do you follow what I'm saying? Now, some people's feelings might get hurt on this, because sometimes you might have to look in the mirror and hold yourself accountable and say, well, maybe I thought I was high value. Maybe I thought I was a catch, but maybe you're not as much of a catch as you thought. Because here's the deal. So if I go to a company, let's go back to markets. This is actually an economic lesson here, just in case you want to know this. You can connect all this right back to economic theory. So if I go to a job and I say, okay, here's my resume. This resume is lit. You should be ready to hire me. Look at all these credentials I have, and I expect a salary of $150,000, and I should be able to work 20 hours a week, and you should hire me because I'm just the best that there is. And they say, we looked over your credentials, but no, thank you. Right now, if I have options, I'm just going to go to another company. Right? If you're truly that good for the job, then some other company will hire you. But if I'm sitting around like, man, these motherfucking companies, man, they don't want to hire nobody. They don't want to hire a brother. That ain't right. Look at how these companies be doing people. That ain't right. That ain't right. That probably means I could be in denial about my level of qualification. If you really want to have this conversation about high value and low value, see, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you the truth. I do believe that there is a definition of high value and low value. Now, the thing about it, though, is that it's not universal. It's in the eye of the beholder, right? And this is where I did disagree with Kevin on certain issues. Like when Kevin said women over 35 are leftovers and nobody wants you, I was like, that's not true, because when I was 45, I refused to even date a woman below 35 because I wanted a grown-ass woman. Because I know that there's a lot of hot-ass 40-something-year-old women that are gorgeous, that are prettier than some of the 25-year-olds. And then on top of that, they got maturity and intelligence to go with it. So who the hell would you be to tell me that every man like me, every high value man, I don't know if I'm high value. I got a PhD and I've made millions of dollars. So I'm sure I'm high value to somebody, and I take good care of myself. So I'm sure I'm high value. I'm high value to my wife, right? Then that's all that matters, right? So as a high value man, I was a little taken aback. Like, wait a minute, hold on, wait, don't tell me that every woman over 35 is garbage, because you can't speak for me. That's not true. Because there are I've met a lot of nice 40-something-year-old 25-year-old women that I would pick over 99% of the 25-year-olds any day of the week because the 25-year-olds are immature. They might look good, but they ain't got it all upstairs. So if you are a man that values an intelligent, mature woman, then you might want a woman who's a little bit older or whatever, or closer to your age. How about that? Right? Or I think there was another example, and this is where the manosphere can, I think, misguide some men. And I know some men are going to find some way to twist this into anti whatever. I'm not being anti nothing. I'm just being pro common sense here. But another thought that came to mind, what was it? Oh, I remember. I saw Kevin do a video with a lady, and he was asking her something like about her, how do you rate yourself, right? And then he said something like, what's your dress size? And I was like, that is the weirdest. I've never in my life ever once. Give me a guess if you're in this category. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. I've never asked a woman her dress size. I have never in my life been like, oh, well, you're a size 7 and I got to have a size 4. Like, I've never been like that. I've never, ever, 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 ever asked a woman her dress size. I was like, is that the criteria we're working on? Because that sounds a little weird and almost feminine. Because most guys I know, most brothers I know, when they start, especially you talking about a black women can be a size anything and look delicious. I mean, really, ain't nobody got curves like a black woman. Seriously. But even if the black women that speak Spanish, there's something about the black woman's physique where she can look good at a lot of different sizes. And I know a lot of men who actually don't mind you having meat on your bones if all the meat is in the right places. So that dress size question was a little bit weird to me because I felt like it was, what's the word? Generalizing, how all men think. And I think that what happens is that when you tell someone that no one's going to want you, like maybe no one's going to want you because your dress size is too big, or no one's going to want you because you have kids, or nobody's going to want you because, like me, I'm 5'8". So if you say no one's going to want you because you're not 6 feet tall, those are just not only those untrue statements, but you're missing a key element of how a market functions. There is an element in a market called idiosyncrasy. Right, or idiosyncratic. That will be the term maybe to use. There's an idiosyncratic aspect of how we judge in each other, meaning very specific. That basically says that there are some systematic factors, right? Like a tall man is on average more attractive than a shorter man. A rich man is on average more attractive than a poor man. A man with more education is on average more attractive than a man with less education. But that does not mean that is the rule. Do you follow what I'm saying? That does not mean that that's the rule, right? So if I say, okay, a woman with kids is just automatically on a lower rung, you're missing a lot of the process of how people go about evaluating what relationship they want. I know men who really like women with kids. I actually, I'll admit, I gained a preference. And when I was single and dating, it wasn't that I didn't want to date a woman that didn't have kids, but number one, I think kids are cool. Kids are fun. I like mentoring black kids. And also I found that women with kids, they tended to have a type of maturity and discipline that women without kids had not yet developed. Having children kind of makes you grow up and evolve a little bit. Like when I had my daughter, I became a different man. I was much harder working. I was much more responsible than I was when I didn't have kids. And the same thing might be true with women. So I think that the problem, if you are in the manosphere, and I'm not telling you to leave, I mean, you can be there if you want to, I would personally carry a couple of thoughts. Number one, remember that when you're spending a lot of time complaining about women, you're kind of revealing that you have a hard time getting women. Because men who can really attract women don't have to complain a lot because if one woman doesn't give you what you want, you just pick a different woman. You pick a better woman. You say, okay, thank you. I'm not interested, but I've got other options over here. If you've got 10 other options that are waiting to give you what you want, why are you complaining about the one who didn't give you what you want? So to be honest with you, that's one thing that you're kind of doing. So you got to be real careful about that. And I think also the generalization it's just not accurate, like especially when we have these conversations about kids. I think you have to be cautious about the kid conversation because kids are sensitive, and kids didn't ask to be put in the situation that they're in. And when you talk about black children like they are just a complete liability, like they're just worthless, I just don't think that's necessary, right? I think you can just say, you know, I prefer not to be with somebody with kids. I want to have my own. So, I'm not interested. That's all you got to say. You don't have to say, well, you're low value because you have children, because what you're really doing is it's not a mature conversation, because you're neglecting all the complexities that happen in relationships that cause men and women to get into situations where you got kids with somebody that you're not proud of. And remember, the same way you have women that have kids. I mean, I've seen it too. Like they talk about women when they're in their 20s dating the thugs and chasing the bad boys, and then they have kids with the bad boys, and then they want to go after the nice guy when it's time to get married. Yeah, I've seen that happen. It's life, right? But then also remember, you have men who have kids with raggedy ass women, right? Crazy ass babies mamas. And next thing you know, he's in his 30s with a criminal record, a bad credit score, a bunch of student loans, a bunch of STDs, and 3 kids with 3 women. But he's feeling like he's a high value man, when really maybe you're not as high value to everybody as you might think you are. So this is not gender specific. This is not gender specific. So really, if you really want to understand how to compete in any market, whether it's dating or jobs or anything, there's a point where accountability is a requirement. There's a point where accountability is necessary. If you can't hold yourself accountable and say, gosh, man, these women are pissing me off. I'm really stressed out and frustrated. I can't get them to do what I need them to do. Well, that probably means that you need to pick differently. Maybe the women that you're selecting are women who have better options than you. That's another thing. If a woman is not willing to give you what you want, it could be either because she's not qualified to do it, which means you pick somebody better, or it might mean that you're just option number 6 and you're ranked number 4 in her hierarchy of all the men that she could be with, and you're mad because you're not ranked number 1. You're mad because you're not the apple of her eye like you think you are, because maybe you've never taken a minute to look in the mirror and realize maybe that you're not offering everything you can offer, right? So again, go back to the job analogy. If I go to the job and I say, I have a college degree. I'm willing to work 20 hours a week, and I'd like to make $300,000 a year. And the company says, no, thank you. I could sit around and bitch and moan and complain and say, damn it, this sucks. These companies ain't right. What the hell's wrong with these companies? See, they keep passing up on good employees, right? But maybe you're not a good employee. Maybe they're rational. Maybe their thinking is very logical to say, you're not bad, but we have people back in the back with PhDs and law degrees who are willing to work 40 hours a week, who don't want $300,000 a year. Maybe they only want $150,000, right? So you have there's an honesty that the market brings to you. That's the point. There's an honesty it brings to you, and I guess if you want to just sit in a group of people and complain about what you're not getting, there will always be people that will sit with you and complain with you. Misery always loves company. If you have lost or you are a loser, there will always be other losers willing to sit with you and bitch and moan and complain all day long. But if you want to go into the space of winners, in my view, typically tend to be people who are ready to do the work, who are ready to be accountable. So, I think the same thing is true with and you could use it on either gender. If you're a woman and you think all men are garbage and all men are this and all men do that and whatever, then that means you haven't taken the time to think about the type of men you're picking. It might mean that maybe you're not thinking about what you're offering men when you bring them to the table, or maybe you're so concerned about being called a pick-me that you don't understand that quality men want to be around women who treat them well. And so men are not selecting you, or they're walking away from you, and you're upset about that because you can't compete with whatever options that man has. I can remember, actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I'll tell myself for a second. I remember before I married my wife, I became more of a high value man, right? Because I had some money and and status and all this other stuff, and so I met women. I would meet different women, and they would just some of them would shoot their shot, things would happen or whatever. And I remember there would be times where, if you were to try to define me and say, is Boyce a good man or a bad man? Well, there might be one woman who says, oh, Boyce is a great guy. He's really nice. He'll bring you flowers. He'll call you every day, and he'll really be kind to you, right? My wife would say that, right? Because I'm very, very kind to my wife, because she was the number 1 draft pick in my mind. But there might be another woman who says, oh, Boyce ain't shit. Boyce is mean, and he don't call you. He don't give you no attention. He don't do blah, 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 blah. Well, that's because that woman may not have been my number one pick. Now, she might be somebody else's number one pick, right? So I wish her well, but everybody can't be everybody's number one pick. I believe people treat each other differently based on whether you are a fit, right? So if you think about the woman who looks at me, who might reflect on me and say, Boyce was just he wasn't nice. He didn't do nothing for me. He never took me on no trips, whatever, right? Because I was flying all around the world, right? There were women I've dated that you would never know about because I wouldn't even go in public with them or anything or do anything with them because I wasn't that interested, right? So my best advice to those women would be find a man who values you at the level that you'd like to be valued, and there probably is somebody out there. It just wasn't me. And also, it may not even be a matter of your lack of value. It may just be a matter of the fact that the person is occupied. Maybe when I met you, I was thinking about my wife and she became ranked number one. She was the instant number one draft pick. So all the other draft picks went down in the hierarchy because I'm focusing my energy on this person. So I think for a lot of men, that same thing might happen. You might look at a woman and say, oh, these women do this, or these women do that, or these women won't do this, or these women won't do that. But maybe she's just thinking about somebody else. She's either out of your league or she's not interested in you. And the best move for you to make is to keep it moving. Like you keep it moving. And people who have options who are truly high value, if you're truly high value, you can always find somebody who will see your value. Right? If you're truly high value, then you'll always be able to find somebody that will see your value. If you cannot find someone who will see your value, then you probably weren't high value like you thought you were. Right? That's just the truth. And again, I'm thinking about this in terms of markets because that's what all we studied. When I was doing my doctorate in finance, we studied how markets function and stuff like that. And sometimes you might have just a bad market. Maybe you just haven't met that person that you're supposed to meet because nobody, people don't know you exist, or maybe you haven't been out enough or whatever. But I would tell you this: I think the worst thing a person can do is spend a lot of time being frustrated over somebody who really don't want you. And that's true not just for the women, but also for the men. So when I see the men in the manosphere, I see a lot of pain. I don't understand, why you would do podcast after podcast explaining to women what they're doing wrong when they reject you, like why they're going to end up lonely because they didn't decide to be with you. And I'm like, well, who cares? Like, why do you feel it is your job to make sure that these women are able, or don't die alone, or don't grow up and or grow old by themselves? Like, what is that? Why is that your concern? And that's the interesting thing too, is I would hear people that would say that, well, what we're doing is we're holding these women accountable. I'm like, why? Like, why? What, are you their father? Like, what is it? Why is it your job? Maybe they're happy. Maybe this woman's happy being by herself. Maybe it's her and her vibrator and her, she's reading, she got good books, a vibrator, and a great job, and she's happy with that. Maybe, maybe that's the life she wants. Leave her alone and go find somebody who is interested in you, right? That just, really, so I want y'all to pay attention, right? When you go watch some of the videos, I want you to see how many times you will see men that are like in this almost instructor mode. Like I'm teaching these women that their strategy in dealing with men is going to lead to bad outcomes. Okay, who are you doing this for? Like, really, what is it? What are you? Why? I don't. If you are not, I can tell you, like everybody else on this earth. How many of y'all in this room? Give me a yes and admit to me. How many of you have been rejected? Ever been rejected by somebody who just didn't want you? You didn't understand why. How many of you have ever been rejected by somebody where you knew you'd be great for them, but they just weren't interested, right? Maybe she was chasing the thug. I once was really madly in love with a woman who literally started dating a guy who killed people for a living. I kid you not. She literally, because she was so caught up in the bad boy, she literally started dating a guy who went to prison 12 years for murder. It's very heartbreaking. It's very sad. Or women, same thing. You're good for this man. You know that you could take care of him like nobody else will, but he's chasing the dumb girl with the big booty or whatever, right? And you can't, maybe he doesn't see you because he's so blinded by a bad option. Well, I think in time, what I realized is that if you're really just that great of an option, you have to move on. It makes no sense to try to sell something of value to someone who does not see that value. If I have the rarest diamond in the world and it's a blue diamond or something, whichever one it is super expensive, and I know it's worth $10 million, and you won't offer me more than $80 for it, that clearly just means you're not the right person. It's a bad market. You're not the right buyer for this diamond. So I might be able to talk you into going from $80 to $250, but I'm still not going to get my true value. The best thing for me to do is to go out and expand the market. That's it. You go expand the market. So you go and you try your best to get this woman, and she doesn't see your value. She doesn't understand that you're a high value man, and she's doing these things, these hoish things that piss you off or whatever. Well, if you're a high value man, then go find a woman who values a high value man. Like I was the guy who spent a lot of time in the library. And as a guy that spent a lot of time in the library, I got passed over by the dumb women who were chasing the thugs. All the women that would go out and chase the bad boy and get her ass beat and get pregnant by a loser and then want to go marry the nice guy later. I saw all that, right? And I just remember thinking, like, okay, I want to find me a woman who likes guys that want to be in the library. I'm not going to turn myself into a thug to impress you. And I'm not going to go chasing a woman who cannot see my value. So I was never a candidate for the manosphere because it would probably confuse me. The only thing I could see in terms of the benefit is maybe it helps you release some steam. Maybe there's like frustration from experiences and you just kind of want to get it out. Also, I think it allows you to be in this space that reminds me of kind of like the Derek Jackson space. Derek Jackson did this for women. On the internet, there are lots of spaces where people go and they sit in these vacuum chambers and they literally complain about stuff. And then everybody just repeats what their complaint is. So like Derek Jackson, what Derek Jackson does for women is he says, the reason that a man don't want to be with you is because men don't want to be with a woman who holds him accountable. Or a man, he doesn't want you because he doesn't want to be mature and blah, 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 blah. Right. But Derek Jackson knew the game. Derek Jackson knew that if I just tell you what you want to hear, if I validate your delusion, then you will pay me for that. Like you will pay me if I simply repeat everything that you've been saying to yourself in order to make you feel better about the fact that you're not getting what you want, because anything is better than you actually holding yourself accountable and learning how to evolve and learning how to truly compete for the things that you want. So basic things like my wife, the reason that I married my wife over the other women I could have married is because number one, I think she's beautiful. She's super smart. She can cook her ass off. And I love her kids. I don't care if people think the kids are bad. I don't care. I like kids. I think kids are cool. And she understands me, and she's nice to me, like there's little things that you can do to make yourself appealing. And she's not a pick me, but she understands that it's easier to attract a man if you're nice than if you're not nice. And so, but then again, though, maybe some men like it when you're a bitch to them. Maybe if you want to be a bitch, you just go find a man who likes bitchy women. I was never that guy, and so I just really, I don't know. I felt the need to say this because I just kind of feel like the stuff I see on the internet is kind of interesting and confusing and almost, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it's built around hate or frustration but it's definitely not, especially for the men who do that. I just want you to understand it definitely makes you look weak. It's like if you're competing in a game, and I play, if you play football and you're constantly complaining to the referees, it makes you look like you really are mad because you can't score any points. Right? Because if you're winning, you just start winning. If you're dominating, you just start dominating. And I think that all the complaints that people have about women in the manosphere are interesting to me because if you have true power over your outcomes, meaning that you have enough value and value leads to power, then you will always find somebody that will give you what you want. That's why two people can both go into the job market and one person can sit around complaining all day because nobody will hire them. And then the other person says, well, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I got plenty of job opportunities out here. Well, it's probably because there's a difference in qualifications. There's a difference in work ethic. There's a difference in how widely you've searched the market. Maybe there's a difference in how well you interview. Like all those things may come into play, and then the people who complain, all they know is how to get mad about it, right? So that just like even when me having this conversation, I'm sure that I'm not even really looking at everything in the chat, but I'm sure somebody's in there complaining and using words like simp or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, you can keep complaining. That's what you do. I mean, and keep being mad, but being mad does not make your life better. Evolving makes your life better. So the last summary point I'll make on this, and then I'll be done with this, is um, if you run into bad women, get away from them and find good women. There are good women out there. You just have to look. If you run into a bad man, don't say all men are garbage. Just get rid of the garbage men. Find you a better man. And the more you work to make yourself a marketable commodity, the more you make yourself into the pick me or the simp. Fuck those stupid terms. Those are dumbass terms made by people who refuse to compromise, who are not healthy enough for relationships. Those terms, pick me and simp, are the dumbest terms I have ever seen in my life, because at the end of the day, in any market, if you want to make yourself valuable in a market, you have to offer something that the other party wants. Do you understand what I am saying right now? If I run a goddamn business and I say, well, I don't want to be a simp and offer good customer service, well, then ain't no customers going to want to do business with you. Or if you go into job interviews, you say, well, I don't want to be no pick me, so I'm not gonna agree to work hard. I'm not gonna agree to do anything. I'm not gonna work on my credentials. Then guess what? You'll be unemployed. You will be unemployed. Won't nobody want to be around you? Not good companies. The only time you'll ever get an opportunity is when somebody's going to harm you or exploit you, when they're just as treacherous as you are. So those terms, pick me and simp, are just terrible. It's terrible terminology, because I can tell you, as a married man, marriage ain't nothing but an ongoing negotiation and compromise. You can't walk into things like marriage and have like all this ego and determination to always get what you want all the time. You'll be divorced in 10 minutes, so you might as well not do it. Just stay single. It's okay to be single. Like, it's okay to be single for the rest of your life. Do it. Right? Everything has a trade-off. But this, and anybody who's worried about that, really, I'm really talking more so to the people who are more led to be insecure about that. Like, oh, I don't want to be no simp. No, I think it's okay to be a nice guy. I think it's okay to be a nice guy. Just don't be nice to everybody. I've always been a nice guy. And yeah, sometimes when you're nice, people hurt you. I have been hurt badly. I've been hurt badly in public. But guess what? Being a nice guy allows me to sleep well at night. Being a nice guy means that I have a lot of people that are appreciative of me being in their life. Being a nice guy means I have people that are loyal to me to the grave, because I have shown up for them when they needed me. So when you talk about those terms, pick me and simp, if you talk about on the female side, where you have these women that'll call a woman a pick me because she wants to cater to men and love the right man and everything else. Number one, if your love is that good, you can't share it with everybody, right? So discernment and boundaries are absolutely critical. And so that would be the mistake I've seen, is when you are too loving to all the wrong people. But when you meet the right person, you better love your ass off. You better show up with your A game, because you're always competing in a relationship. I mean, I still feel like I have to compete for my wife. It doesn't mean other guys might come in my bedroom. I have the incumbent's advantage, but I compete for her every day. Every day, I'll try to remind this woman why I was the guy that she should have picked. Every day, I remind this woman why I'm the best man on earth for her. And she makes it easy for me because she loves me already, as long as I don't mess up too much. But at the end of the day, don't you ever think that you're not on competing on some level, so you can walk around and let your ego cause you to withhold love from other people, which probably comes from some trust issue that you develop because maybe you got hurt. Like a lot of guys who have that whole pimp and hoes mindset, like, if we don't love these hoes, usually those are men who fell in love one time and they got their heart broken, and so they see love as like a vulnerability. They're afraid of love, right? So it's like a type of fear that's kind of driving their decision making, whereas the really true strength is the ability to walk back into the abyss of love and know that you might get hurt, and then have the courage to know that you can recover, right? That to me is my definition of courage. It's not to avoid the thing that scares you. It's to face it head on and walk right into it, be a little smarter, and then just know, hey, you know what? If my heart gets broken and I end up on the floor again, I'm going to be strong enough. I know I'm strong enough to pick myself up and recover from it. Okay. So what I would say is, you know, the terms pick me and simp, I think, are very counterproductive, or at the very least, if you're talking about a woman attracting men, I can tell you as a man who I had women that were interested in me. It wasn't hard to find them. I like nicer women more than I like the bitches, right? So the woman that played hard to get, or the woman who withheld love, or the woman who was just kind of a jerk to me, I would pass women like that over because my wife is a very nice person. She was a quote unquote a pick me when it came to me. She wasn't a pick me when it came to everybody, but she was a pick me when it came to me, and I was a simp when it came to my wife. So when you talk about the term simp, I think that there is something to be said, obviously, about men having strength, right? I think that women are more attracted to strong men than they are to weak men. I think that that is 100% true. But I don't think that being just a brutish, evil, emotionally unavailable person is going to work out for you for very long. There has to be some point where the armor gets taken off. If you're always sort of in this hyper masculine role, then you can be put in that place where you appear to be toxic. And next thing you know, your woman is falling in love with somebody else, and there's nothing you can do about it. So my thought is that, I guess maybe the term simp could be applied if you are being nice to women who don't deserve it. Like, so for example, I've been very mean to women if they were like in publicly. I've had women go on the internet and complain all day for two. There's one lady that did video for years about how mean I was and how much of an asshole I am. And she's right. I was a complete asshole to her once I realized that she was a toxic person and I didn't want to be around her anymore. But as a general rule, I enjoy being a nice person, and I don't. And the idea that that would make someone a simp is just kind of silly, ridiculous, and very immature. So the only thing I could chalk it up to is maybe some of this conversation is being driven by younger men who still haven't learned certain things. Maybe they don't have fathers to kind of help them understand the balance. I think there's a huge fatherlessness problem in the Black community, and so if you're learning manhood from a rapper, they're going to teach you the wrong version of manhood. A lot of rappers die young; they don't live past the age of 50 because they spent years living in a hyper masculine state. They're heavily traumatized. Trauma kills you earlier. And they also, so that might include lots of liquor, lots of drugs, lots of women. And also their lives are a complete mess by the time they're 45 years old. They got diseases, babies, mamas, empty bank accounts, all that stuff. And even, and really the truthful reality, if I was to lay this out there, is that, what made me sad, one of y'all brought up Kevin Samuels. When you bring up Kevin Samuels, it's a mixed bag for me because I think Kevin was such a smart man. And there were times where I did actually agree with him on certain areas. And I felt like, women that disagree with him, I encourage them to listen, not so much to everything he says, but ask yourself, why are so many men attracted to what he's saying, right? Maybe there's a frustration there. But the thing that was so unfortunate and ironic about Kevin's life was, for some reason, he felt the need to warn women that if you don't listen to him, you were going to die alone, right? It was all about that die alone. That die alone comment made him famous. And so he ran with it. He had a lot of videos talking about die alone, die alone, die alone. He would put the words die alone in the title over and over again. And because he understood the algorithm, he knew that that's what people would be searching for, and it would increase his viewership. And I didn't understand it because I'm sort of like, well, why do you even care? If a woman is making choices that you don't agree with and you're not her father, why do you care? I mean, why do you need to even tell her that? And then what was really sad and ironic about it was that he forgot one important thing, that men can die alone too. Men can die alone too. And so with Kevin, when I saw that he died of a heart attack and he was with a woman that he only met 24 hours earlier, I said, wow. I told my wife, I said, that was my greatest nightmare as a 51-year-old man, is that if I forgot that I'm 50 and I think that I'm 25 and I think that my life is always better by running the streets, laying down with any chick I see, then what happens if I have a heart attack and I'm sitting here with a 30-year-old I just met the day before? She's not going to be the one that's going to be down for me. She's not going to give a shit. She's not, at that point, I'm not there to pay her bills anymore or give her money. She's going to just look at me as some gross old man that she's trying to get away from. And I've seen this happen. There's a whole movie about that, actually. I think it was called As Good as It Gets, and it starred Jack Nicklaus. And he was an old player. He was 60 something years old, and he didn't like women his own age. He only liked like 30-year-olds. And at some point he had a heart attack, and the lady that took care of him was Diane Keaton's character, who was the same age as him, and he was able to not so much not appreciate the young pretty girls. I mean, the young pretty girls are always going to be young and pretty, so there's something to be said about that for sure. But he was able to appreciate a mature woman too, and to see that older, more mature woman, that woman that's closer to your age, or that wife or whatever, she's the one that's really invested in you. Like, so when I went to the hospital a couple of times, I've had to go to the doctor and get put under for just different procedures or whatever. My wife was the person that had my back when I was passed out, and that's a very vulnerable state to be in, just knowing that, number one, you're unconscious, so you don't know what the hell's going on, and then two, when you first come out, you can't what's the word? You can't drive yourself home. You're not allowed to do that. Somebody has to pick you up. And so it was nice to say, they were like, who's going to pick you up? I was like, my wife's going to pick me up. And I felt good, saying that, so I just kind of feel like, I mean, if you want to ask like why I talk about this kind of thing, first of all, like I said, when I think about everything in terms of markets, and I wanted to make that key point about, if you're constantly complaining about women, that probably means, maybe, I don't know, maybe you can't compete the way you want to. And so you kind of feel like I'm just going to complain. Because if you don't like the woman that's in front of you, you could just pick a different woman. Like, it's okay to do that. But then the other part is that I feel like there needs to be more conversations where people get a chance to hear from grown men, as opposed to just hearing from men who are frustrated, or men who, think that everything comes down to a woman's dress size or how old she is or things like that. I think that's overly simplistic. I think that Black love is important because that's the reason we exist. Like, if Black love fails to exist anymore, then our community will die. You can't live without two people coming together and loving each other enough to make a child. And then they also have to love each other enough to raise that child together. Because if they don't, then you have a lot of dysfunctional children who are bitter and hurt because their mama didn't love their daddy, and so they had one parent, not the other, right? So Black love is really important. If you forget about that, then you're going to end up having a really messed up community. So I just felt the need to jump into the conversation. I know people are going to get mad. I know that there's going to be people calling me a simp and stuff like that, and it's okay. I'm all right. I know I'm not a simp. I don't care what people think. And I hope that this conversation helps somebody. And I don't mean to ramble on about it, but I kind of felt like it's important that we just have some balance. So if you are one of those guys that find yourself in that category of being frustrated, believe me, I can join you. I get it. I understand. There's a lot of knucklehead, ignorant ass people out here that just drive you insane. And I got in so much trouble because I don't like the way Lizzo promotes obesity and this hoish behavior. She fulfills the Mammy Jezebel stereotype, to be specific. My wife actually educated me on some of that. And white men love to see that. That's what they'll always pay her, to embarrass the Black woman and embarrass herself and embarrass her community, even though she could just be a great singer who plays the flute. But instead it comes with the whole minstrel show. And I brought that up and white people didn't like it. So of course they painted me as the bad guy, but I stand by every single word I've ever said. So I get it. I don't, there's a lot of things I see that just don't appeal to me. But one of the things I think people should remember, if those guys in the manosphere, is just remember that there's a lot of good Black women out there. There are so many Black women. You have no idea. When I was being labeled as the biggest sexist on earth because I didn't go along with Lizzo's record label and the mass promotion of obesity, which kills millions of people on a regular basis, I did have people that were mad at me, but I had so many Black women who were like, thank you. They were thanking me. They were agreeing with me, and I think that when we talk about what's out there, just know you've always got better options, so when you see a video and you see some raggedy, shallow woman talking ignorant or overly materialistic or just getting on your nerves, that ain't got to be your woman. You don't have to pick that lady. Why are you mad about it? Just walk away. I don't get mad about it. I say, wow, look at that lady. I wouldn't date her. I'm glad I picked my wife. And because I think that when you just kind of generalizing Black women in a category, it just kind of gets messy and it's not fair. And the same thing will be true for women. So the same thing applies to women. And somebody said I'm all over the place right now. And I agree, I am all over the place because my thoughts are all over the place. But at the end of the day, I just really think that, if you really are truly high value, if you really are the high value man that you think you are, you ain't got to prove that to nobody. A high value man always has options. And if you find yourself without options, that could mean that you're not as high value as you think you are, which means that you might need to put some things together. You might have to get your money up. You might have to learn how to make a woman happy. You may have to learn a couple things in the bedroom. You may have to, pick up, find some, or pick different women. Pick a woman that can appreciate the kind of man that you are. But I just really think people that truly have options don't complain about the bad options. They just pick something different. So that's my 2 cents. That's my thought for today. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. So I'm out of here, guys. By the way, my website is boycewatkins.com. So I hope you guys will hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe. Most of the time I talk about financial related topics. And today this was actually a financial topic, believe it or not, because if you ever want to know what kills Black wealth more than anything, it is baby mama, baby daddyism. When you have broken families, that's the biggest killer of Black wealth that there is. Because it's very hard to build wealth with a broken family. The lowest median net worth in America is that of the single Black mother with kids. And right there with her is the single Black father that has multiple kids with multiple women. So even when I'm talking about relationships or love and dating, I'm really talking about money. There's a huge financial component to dating that people don't even talk about. Even other little things like even though your money even affects the way you date. When I had no money, I could only go out, with so many women because or over so much time because money mattered. If I took you on a date and we spent $100, that would really set me back. But then when I had more money, I dated different. I didn't care about the money anymore. We could go to whatever restaurant you wanted to. I didn't care how much money you made. I would look at other criteria besides the money. So so money affects relationships, and relationships affect money. Also, the other thing that happened is that once I made more money, I noticed that the women trusted me faster, and that's something ladies have to be careful about. Is that I noticed women would trust me because I was rich and I was smart and I was famous, and I thought you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position because I could have been a terrible person. I could have been, a rapist or whatever. And you wouldn't know that because you're so enamored with the fairy tale of what I look like on paper that you didn't take the time to actually do a thorough investigation to determine what kind of man I am. And I think men do the same thing when it comes to like a beautiful woman. Like there's some women out here that are just hellish, but they look gorgeous. Sometimes the biggest terrorists will come in the most beautiful package. Like I think about that. I think about that one lady. I forgot her name, but she dated that basketball player at Kentucky and took like all his money and had his baby. And she was 28 or 27. She pretended like she was a college student. You know what I'm talking about? I forgot her name. Deion Sanders actually invited her to speak at Jackson State. And now she's actually expressing regret over all the men that she slept with and everything. But she literally did videos about how like getting pregnant with an athlete was a great way to make money and stuff like that. And so the thing is that not only was she bad for the world, but she's bad for herself because my thought, Brittany Renner, thank you, Brittany Renner, that's her name. Yeah, I remember thinking this is kind of messed up because you're letting all these nasty dudes in your body. Like you look gorgeous, but I can only imagine just what from a health perspective what that looks like. Because I know some athletes. There was a guy actually that played at the University of Kentucky named Winston Bennett. And Winston Bennett was on ESPN because he didn't brag, but he said he had a sex addiction. And he said he had sex with 90 women a month. 90 women a month. Now, I don't know how that's possible because that's literally 3 women a day. But Winston Bennett literally said he had sex with 90 women a month. So my thought is if you're talking about picking high value, low value, and all this other stuff, you can't just look at like somebody's dress size or how cute she is. That doesn't make her high value. Like if she is sleeping with dudes that slept with thousands of women, that's just gross. Like that's just. And so I wonder if she changed her perspective because maybe there were some health consequences to letting lots and lots of overly experienced men have sex with you without a condom. Like that does have real consequences. The thing is that's the underbelly of it all. That's the part I think about because I try to think about everything. I think about the things that other people don't think about. So so when you're talking about high value, low value, and you're just talking about somebody's dress size or how much money they make, I encourage you as intelligent Black people, because that's why you listen to me. A lot of people don't listen to me. A lot of people, I talk over their heads, or they think I'm just rambling. They think I'm, a square or a dumb old man. Whatever, I don't care. But the reason you're listening to me is because you can appreciate some degree of effort toward higher level thinking. And so I would encourage you as an intelligent Black man or intelligent Black woman to really think about all of that and how that's going to fit into your life. Because if you don't, if you just go for the shallow stuff, like what somebody looks like and how much money they have, you could be creating your own personalized nightmare. I just seen people literally end up in nightmares that would make you damn near suicidal, and they thought that they were living a dream. They thought that they'd actually picked the best option when really they picked the worst option. So that's my thought on it. I'm done. I have nothing else to say. Thank you all for listening. This podcast is on Spotify, by the way. So if you want to listen, just listen in your car or something like that, feel free to look up the Dr. Boyce Breakdown on Spotify or Apple. And also my website is boycewatkins.com. So if everybody could please hit the thumbs up button on the way out the door, I'd appreciate that. Thumbs up, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. I will talk to you guys soon, and have a good day. Take it easy. Peace.